We are ready.
I am ready.
So, your father was a famous agent, is that correct?
Yes, he was.
And he was stationed in Germany?
He was stationed in Germany and later on in Egypt, but mostly in Germany.
Uh-huh.
And then after the Six-Day War, he returned to Israel and later died because he was tortured during one of the missions, Israeli missions, and passed away. So,
Tortured
by the Egyptian.
But his relationship with the Mossad at the end of his life was not so.
Well, you know, it's hard to say, and it's a subject that I'm studying myself because there's never a happy ending with Mossad, unfortunately. But you can't blame Mossad because the school is an old school. It's an old Russian school that suggests that once you're a Mossad agent, you're always a Mossad agent. You cannot leave, you cannot immigrate, you cannot do other things. And you choose a life and you stick with that life. And times have changed, people have changed, and people have left. And my father was the first agent who really had an issue, a medical issue. He needed some medical treatment that could only be provided in 2 hospitals abroad. And the Israeli government would not allow him to leave the country for that.
Who's got the biggest private intelligence agency in the world?
You know,
Wackenhut?
Wackenhut used to have. I think Wackenhut went through transition. They were merged. They became public and then start shrinking. I really don't know where they are today. We used to be fierce competitors. And it ended a few years ago where each one found its own niche, went in different directions. We stuck with a direction of, we service 3 areas only. White-collar crime fraud investigation, primarily. We're the investigators on Enron, WorldCom, Tyco, Conseco, Parmalat, all those big scandals. We do a white-collar crime investigation. Fraud. The second area is due diligence, financial due diligence worldwide. And the third, which is the bread and butter, is asset search and recovery. We go after large debt of banks, financial institutions, insurance companies, and we find the money that was stolen and hidden somewhere offshore in safe havens and retrieve the money back.
You followed the chain of money up the ladder, and in the book and the movie, you end up with this aristocratic French family.
Yes,
and
the group.
You end up protecting their identities and never revealing their identities to your superiors.
Yeah, they still exist. I still meet with them. I still have a relationship, but that's my own.
I know you're not going to tell me who they are.
No.
Are they really French? Or
They're really
from
French.
A different country?
No, they're really French. They're really
Are they
French.
part of the Gladio network?
I can't comment on it. If I start commenting, I can also give you a hint. All I can say to you that they started their operation during the Nazi occupation of France.
Right. I mean, if you look at the history, though, it doesn't make any sense that they're anybody but Gladio, because that's who the stay behind armies, the terror network. That's what it was.
Could be.
Could be. But your relationship is good now, right? I mean,
it's a great relationship.
With the Mossad, you go to Israel.
It's a great relationship now.
Yeah.
It's.
You got paid. You got your money back.
No, I never got paid.
Pan Am 103.
Yes. Pan Am 103 was really one of the biggest cases that took a major toll on me, because that was the first political case that I took on. It didn't start as a political case. Pan Am was the only American courier that flew to Israel at the time. And when Pan Am, one of the planes was bombed, and we know over Lockerbie, Pan Am as an airline wanted to find out who was behind the bombing, how did the bomb went on board, who's responsible for it, and so on. And they had the pleasure to interview hundreds of investigators from all over the world who wanted to get this job. It was a big undertaking. I never seek this job. I was asked to come. Pan Am acquired in Israel who the Israeli intelligence recommended, and they all pointed out and suggested that Pan Am should hire me. So I was brought in, invited to come in, and I took on this assignment. Went to Europe and started the investigation, and in a very short time I wrote a report, an interim report. It wasn't a final report. In my finding, I suggested that the bomb went on board in a different way than the US government suggested it went on board. The US government report because it pointed the finger at the government, at the US government, suggesting that they have helped the bomb to go on board. They facilitated it.
Did you say there was a controlled delivery going on?
I'll get to it. What really happened is that we documented that for 19 months there were controlled substance, a weekly suitcase full of heroin coming in from the Middle East into the United States, sold on the street in Chicago and New York to people to raise money for a slush fund for one of the agencies, intelligence agencies. That was going on since Pan Am was the vehicle, the airline that was used. We could document that suitcase and the courier and the person who came to the airport in Kennedy or in Chicago to pick up the suitcase on a weekly basis, because Pan Am helped that agent drive to the plane in one of Pan Am's cars and wait for the suitcase to come up before it went through customs and immigration, and it took it away. So just looking at Pan Am, at the roster of who traveled and who came with a suitcase on a weekly basis, we established 19 months of that activity. That activity facilitated the bomb to go on board because the drugs came from Lebanon, from the Bekaa Valley. The guy in charge of the Bekaa Valley at the time, the guy that sold the drugs to the agents there, who then shipped it to the United States, was Ahmad Jibril, who this notorious terrorist, who was under contract by Iran to down an American airliner because of the downing of one of their Airbuses full of pilgrim by the Vincent, if you remember, in the Gulf.
Did you interview by any chance Les Coleman while you were doing your investigation?
Not while. I met Les Coleman after. I didn't actually interview him. I didn't know him at the time. What happened is he read my copy of my report. He then approached Pan Am's lawyers, and they introduced us. And I spent some time with him. And he provided Pan Am with some interviews and some affidavits of his knowledge of, that was similar to what I have said in a report. He saw it from a different angle because he was stationed in Cyprus at the time, and he saw the courier on a weekly basis that traveled to the US.
We must be aware that Coleman's thesis was that particular plane was picked because there were 4 intelligence officers on it who had decided to come back to Washington and drop a dime on the controlled delivery system.
That's my report, actually.
Oh, so you...
That was my report.
Okay.
Coleman just took it and expanded on it and added his knowledge about meeting some of the people in Cyprus and in Beirut who ran the operation. Right. He claimed that he tried to warn Washington while he was working for the DA in Cyprus that something is going on, and nobody took him seriously. And when Pan Am was blown up of the sky, they realized that he has written reports all along. You know, going back like 9/11, if you go back to 9/11, there were FBI agents who warned and wrote letters and nobody took them serious. When 9/11 happened, they were immediately brought in, and some of them were accused of whatever they were, you know, again, they're trying to kill the messenger by distorting, by really looking at your background and find.
Do all of the intelligence agencies do guns and drugs under the table for covert funding?
I believe that most agencies have a need for a slush fund.